From the KELOLAND Digital Desk, I'm meteorologist Scott Mundt, and this is Weather or Not for Wednesday, November 26th. It is Thanksgiving Eve. So let's talk about the weather. What can we expect on this Thanksgiving Eve? Well, it looks like we'll have dry skies for today, and that will carry over into tomorrow. And coming up on today's show, we'll talk about these snow amounts that we have been receiving across the area. And there's another round of snow in the works as we do get into your Friday. Along with it, temperatures will start to turn colder as we do go through this weekend. We'll have another installment of cold air as we do get into the second half of this coming weekend. We are looking at temperatures by Sunday, probably falling to the teens for afternoon highs. So that's well below average. I put an outline together for you. Decreasing wind, cold temperatures. We have that going in our forecast for today. We've had wind gusts even this morning in that 40-mile-per-hour range. A lot of that showing up east of Interstate 29. So that puts it into Minnesota. I know Marshall, Minnesota, earlier this morning was 4 or 5 o'clock. They had a wind gust around 44 miles per hour. Tomorrow, Thanksgiving, it is looking cold, but we'll have dry conditions, and that soon changes as we get into Thursday night, early Friday morning. That's our next snow chance. That starts across western South Dakota, eventually moving into eastern KELOLAND by the time we do get into maybe Friday morning. And I mentioned that the cold air, another shot of some colder air comes in for the second half of the weekend. By Sunday, I think we'll have high temperatures only in the teens, and I think that will cover much of eastern South Dakota. But for today, we'll have our dry skies, even though temperatures will be cold. Numbers this morning, we had those temperatures in the 20s in eastern South Dakota, and I don't think they'll change much. We'll probably stay in the 20s in eastern KELOLAND throughout the morning, even extending into the afternoon. As we get into tonight, we'll watch the thermometer in northeastern KELOLAND. By tomorrow morning, we can see temperatures in northeastern South Dakota that can fall to the single digits. So it will be a cold morning for your Thanksgiving morning in northeastern South Dakota. Temperatures for everybody else probably into the teens during the day tomorrow. Looks like we'll have dry skies. Temperatures in the 20s for many of us, so that's below average. A little bit warmer in the western South Dakota. We'll try to bring our temperatures maybe close to 40 degrees in western KELOLAND for tomorrow, but look how quickly that changes by the time we do get into Thursday night and Friday. A lot of this developing during the overnight hours. Western South Dakota looking at the snow eventually moving into central and eastern KELOLAND, I think, as we do go through the day on Friday. We'll continue to follow that system and talk more about it coming up a little bit later. But here's a look at our winds for today. Still coming in from the northwest. I know we've had numerous travel advisories across eastern and northeastern South Dakota. Conditions will improve. The winds will die down. You can still see this afternoon, you may have these wind gusts into the mid-20s in Minnesota and northwestern Iowa. But as we do hit the evening, those will die down. We'll have light wind speeds for tomorrow, and then they pick up again, this time from an easterly direction. And this is much like what we just went through with getting our snows. We had easterly winds come in ahead of this clipper. We'll do it again for Friday. We'll have the clipper come in, east winds ahead of it. When it leaves, then those winds do change direction to the north, and that will help bring in that next hit of colder air just in time for this weekend. Forecast for today, temperatures remaining steady. Many of us in the 20s across eastern South Dakota. We'll try to warm to the middle 30s in western KELOLAND. And coming up after the break, we'll look at some of the snowfall amounts across the area. Stay with us. You're watching Weather or Not. Welcome back to Weather or Not. I added wind reports to this next segment because we've had a lot of wind reports come in. We'll take a look across KELOLAND and try to pinpoint exactly where we had some of the strongest wind from yesterday. We had a lot of reports in the western South Dakota, these wind gusts of 60 miles per hour and more. But first, I do want to start with snowfall reports, and these are coming from, let's go to our graphics first, and then we'll go to our website that we like to look at to get additional snowfall reports. So what we have seen from yesterday and even early this morning near Victor, they've had 8 inches of snowfall. Hecla at 7, Webster at 6, and we've been looking at our Webster live cam. In fact, that's something good to bring up this morning as I'll work behind the scenes here too and bring up our Webster live cam for you from earlier to this morning, as they've been doing a lot of cleanup into that area. You can see the piles of snow there as well. There's a look at Webster. They've been cleaning this lot throughout the morning, and you can see they've been working on the roadways there as well. Cloudy skies overhead in Webster, and you can check these live cams for yourself at KELOLAND.com. Go ahead and go under that weather tab to live cam. It's the second one listed, and then you can go through the whole list of live cams that we do have available. There's Falls Park, a little bit of snow on the ground after 0.3 of an inch of snowfall. Speaking of the snowfall amounts, as we do go back to this graphic, Sisseton, 5.6. Aberdeen, a little bit over 5 inches of snowfall. Mobridge at around 3. Now, some of those reports came in during the afternoon yesterday, so you may be able to add a little more to those. Watertown, 2.6. Castlewood, just a little more than 2. Huron, a little shy of 1.5 inches, and there's that official report for Sioux Falls at 1/3 of an inch, and Mitchell coming in at 1/10 of an inch of snowfall. Now to the graphics that we like to look at to get these additional snowfall amounts. This is from CocoRa's, and these are volunteers that do send their information for snow reports across the area. Let's go ahead and highlight a couple of these for you as we get into maybe the Claremont area. The snow report there coming in at around 6.5 inches. As we get into maybe Roberts County, mentioned that Sisseton report coming in earlier, 5.8. There's a report coming in just to the west of Sisseton, and another report into Roberts County showing an amount there of around 7 inches. So we do have those heavier reports coming in across northeastern South Dakota. As we'll get into Brookings, you see those amounts coming in at around 1 inch to 1.5 inches. Let's go ahead and continue south on Interstate 29. As again, those amounts near Sioux Falls are around 1/10 of an inch. That looks like the eastern side, close to about 1/2 inch of snowfall. And then southwestern Minnesota. Then we'll try to make our way to the north to see if we have any other reports coming in. But southwest Minnesota, the reports this morning around 1/2 inch to maybe a full inch. You see that report coming in east of Marshall is around 1 inch. And then see if we have any other ones. Let's go into Watertown. 2 inches there. Mentioned that report in Watertown. Official report coming in at 2.6. And then, of course, these lighter amounts in and around Mitchell coming in at around 1/10 of an inch of snowfall. Let's go ahead and switch gears, though, because I did mention the wind reports. And as we do take a look at these wind reports, we'll first start across western South Dakota. I'll go ahead and change the size of this, too, so those numbers may be a little easier to read. So this is western South Dakota. You see these wind gusts coming in from yesterday, 60 to 70 miles per hour. Is that a 78 that I see? Let me go ahead and click that one. 3 miles northwest of Wasta, that's 72 miles per hour, is being covered by that report of 52. 69, that's just the north of 90 there near Hereford. As we take a look at that 70 coming in near New Underwood. So we've had these reports across western South Dakota, in and around Rapid City, adding that 50 to near 60 mile per hour range. Here's a report up to 69 near Phillip. Here's a 76, Cactus Flat, coming in during the morning hours. Let's go ahead and see what we can find here across parts of central and northwestern South Dakota. Here's a 68 near Howells, South Dakota. So we've had those reports there in the western South Dakota pier coming in just shy of 60 at the airport at the wind gust of 59 miles per hour. That came in around 7 o'clock in the morning yesterday. And then, of course, with our blizzard conditions here in the northeastern South Dakota, Aberdeen, that snowfall report coming in at that time at 4, but you see that 60, that's the one I was trying to hit, that 60-mile-per-hour wind gust for Aberdeen, and just south of Aberdeen, Millette, with that wind gust of 65 miles per hour. And then as you travel to the south in near Mitchell, just to the north of Mitchell, near Alpena, looking at that wind gust of 60, Sioux Falls at 54, and then you see from Yankton down toward Vermilion, those wind gusts in the lower 50s. So we had snow and a lot of wind. A lot of the heaviest snows confined across north central to northeastern South Dakota. I mentioned that report in Harriet before, around 4.5 inches of snowfall for them. So there's a quick look at those reports across the area from the storm system that left. And now to our east, we're looking at a decrease in those wind speeds for today, but we're also looking at more snow for Friday. And that's something else we'll talk about coming up after the break. You're watching Weather or Not. Welcome back to Weather or Not. There's another round of snow on the way for Friday. Could start as early as the overnight hours Thursday into Friday morning in western South Dakota, eventually moving into eastern KELOLAND as we get into Friday. So let's go ahead and start with Futurecast again. Over the next couple of days, we are looking at dry conditions for today, dry conditions for tomorrow on Thanksgiving. If you continue with any travel plans that you may have, they're looking better for today. Conditions will improve after all the snow and wind we've had in northeastern South Dakota from yesterday. Conditions will continue to improve for today. And then we'll watch this. This is Futurecast for late tomorrow night, going into early Friday morning. You can see the timestamp there on the top of the screen at midnight going into Friday. So we are looking at developing snow in western South Dakota. This is as another clipper moves in from the northwest. And, I know Brian mentioned this a couple of days ago. We'll be stuck in this northwest pattern for a couple of days, and then we'll just have to time these clippers coming through. This is the second one that will move through. Of course, the first one came through yesterday, so this will be the second one. Right now, I do not think the winds will be as strong as the one we just went through. So I kind of want to make that clearer too. But we are looking at another round of snow. This is trying to bring the snow in as early as 7 o'clock in the morning into east central and southeastern South Dakota. I'll show you some other computer models that are thinking it may be a little more delayed as we do get into Friday, and also show you what those models are thinking for snowfall amounts. And the reason why I made a general forecast of 1 to 4. So that's all coming up here during this segment. By 3 o'clock in the afternoon, our in-house model showing snow across eastern South Dakota into Minnesota and Iowa. This one will play through. Of course, this is coming in from the northwest, being caught in that northwest flow. You see how that snow continues to move across in the southeastern KELOLAND, and it may linger into Saturday. We do have snow chances going into Saturday in eastern and southeastern KELOLAND. You can see on average, I went ahead and drew that 1 to 4 inches of snowfall from northwestern South Dakota into southeastern KELOLAND. Now, let's go ahead and take this time and show you a couple of things, usually behind the scenes. But on this program, we like to bring this up a lot too. This is looking at the European AI version of what to expect for our snowfall amounts Friday and into Saturday. Now, you do notice where we get into that purple color, that's Minnesota, northwestern Iowa, starting to see those higher end totals of 6 inches, okay? I have, in general, 1 to 4 going right now. And, of course, that can change as we do get closer. So this particular model suggesting some higher end totals of 6 to maybe 7 of what you see there in purple in Minnesota and northwestern Iowa. And it looks to be maybe a little bit farther to the north than the model that I just showed you, our more or less our in-house model. Let's go ahead and change to the regular European. Now, it's not as aggressive with bringing those higher totals of 6 to 7, but it's still bringing in those numbers of around 5 in Minnesota and northwestern Iowa. And then as you work your way into Iowa, notice how those numbers do jump. In the central Iowa into maybe 8, 9, even in the southeastern Iowa, getting close to 10 inches of snowfall. Now, let me take this time frame back, see if it's trying to latch on to anything earlier than that. No, it's not. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that we weren't getting anything from this recent system that's leaving, but you do notice how that is filling in or does fill in into eastern Minnesota. That's our most recent system that dropped the heavy snows in South Dakota and western Minnesota. So it's not taking that into account. But as we go through time, here, I'll go ahead and this is around noon on Friday, starting to see some hints of accumulation there in and around Sioux Falls. Otherwise, you have that band in the central to northwestern South Dakota, and then it just continues to fill in as we go through Friday. Let's go to Friday evening. That's at 6 o'clock. You can see how by then the model thinks we can be around an inch of snowfall. Let's not forget about the Parade of Lights, because it looks like, according to this, we could be getting some snow. And we'll see how this actually develops, because it is keeping a lot of the heavier snows into north central and northeastern South Dakota. Maybe in and around Aberdeen, another hit of 4 inches of snowfall, while Sioux Falls, as we continue through time and go into Sunday morning, where Sunday will be dry but cold, it has our snowfall amount just shy of 4 for those areas in and around Sioux Falls. So that's look at the Euro AI and the regular Euro. Let's go ahead and bring up the American model. This is showing Sioux Falls at around 3.4, and then those amounts to the north are a little heavier. Now, how does this compare to the run prior? Okay, it hasn't changed much from the run prior. Okay, so it also brings in some heavier amounts maybe in the southwestern Minnesota and the northeastern South Dakota right on the Coteau. We're looking at maybe some heavier amounts of snow into that direction. One more model that I do want to bring up, and this is a look at the Canadian model. It still brings in those heavier snows across eastern South Dakota, Minnesota, and northwestern Iowa. Gets a little aggressive too, getting into that 6-inch plus range as we get into northwestern Iowa. But that general area that I showed of 1 to 4, go ahead and bring that one in. You know, as we look at this now, probably have to go with some higher totals here across northwestern Iowa, western Minnesota, and I wouldn't be surprised if I end up moving this to the north. I'll be in tomorrow morning for KELOLAND this morning, and don't be surprised if you see that area move a little bit farther to the north. If these models hold true and we have good agreement from going today to tomorrow, looking at these computer runs of what's expected with our snowfall. See if I can bring in anything else. I could bring in the ensembles in, which is a good average of the ones we just looked at. Let's go ahead and bring that in. So this is the European ensemble, and you can see here that, again, the higher totals are in the Minnesota, Iowa, approaching 6 inches plus. We'll bring in the AI European ensembles, and this more or less showing the same thing. The heaviest totals there across northwestern Iowa, but they do taper off as you work your way to the northwest. And the more and more I look at this, and these are newer runs from what I looked at this morning before coming into work, the more and more I look at this, I think we'll have to move our outline of snow probably a little bit farther to the north. As this is the American run, this is the GFS. Shows, again, those heavier snows, north central, northeastern South Dakota. And then notice how it starts to ramp up again into Minnesota, into north central Iowa. So we'll probably have to move that band to the north. I think the Canadian, yep, we could show the Canadian. It's more widespread snows, but some higher end totals here in the Minnesota and northwestern Iowa. So we'll continue to follow the trend there, but don't be too surprised if this gets pushed a little bit farther to the north to include Aberdeen, Watertown, and I'll get a better handle on this tomorrow. Not sure if they'll come out with any numbers during the newscasts later today on KELOLAND. Otherwise, we'll talk about our cold air as we'll take it to break right now, but talk about this cold air as it looks like winter is here. That's coming up after the break. All right, here we go. Last segment, and then let's talk about the cold air. In fact, let's start with our weather graphics, and then I'll show you an email that I sent Brian earlier this week. So here comes our second installment of the cold air for the second half of the weekend on Sunday. That's when temperatures will fall to the teens for afternoon highs. You see the below average temperatures go all the way down to Texas, eventually toward the Gulf Coast as we get into midweek of next week. And western South Dakota may warm a little. By midweek of next week, we could see a jump up in those temperatures, while eastern and northeastern South Dakota probably stay below average. And then we'll see if we get into that, maybe that first weekend of the month, if we could see our temperatures maybe go up a little bit. You may have seen that on our weather pattern, but we'll continue to follow the cold air masses that are to our north and see how much of this breaks apart and moves across the upper plain. So we are looking, as we do go forward, I would say eastern, northeastern South Dakota, thanks in part to getting this blanket of snow on the ground. We are looking at temperatures that will remain below average. I think we'll slowly eat away at that snow cover as we go through the first week to week and a half of the month, as temperatures will try to nudge back at or above average, which, by then we're talking numbers probably into the middle 30s. This is an email that I sent Brian. Now, this is a snapshot from Monday from a 45-day temperature outlook. And I do want to highlight the area there at the beginning of that graphic, trying to show up in that blue. That's still showing temperatures closer to average, okay, when you look at the timeline here. In fact, this wants to push it close to 60. So that was, again, earlier in the week. In fact, I think this was taken into account temperatures from maybe Sunday. And then look what happens. The front comes through. All these colors out here are in the red and the blue. A lot of them coming in that red, maybe that purple, signifying that temperatures are, yes, cold. You could see as we go through the timeline here, the average showing temperatures probably into the 20s for afternoon highs. And this is a look at the high temperatures going forward. So I went ahead and labeled that as winter. So the system moves through, drops the snow yesterday, in comes that cold air, and it may be around for a while. That's what I have for this edition of Weather or Not. I want to thank you for joining us and have yourself a great day.